And that, again, a positive mindset. It's that positive. The reason I always reference that peak and you're like, people get distracted is because when you feel it, and you still have sensitivity, right? Neurologically?
From the belly button up, I can feel everything.
Right.
From the belly button down, I can feel touch, but not pain
Right,
yet.
right. So you feeling like what we call within Taoism, these are called Lao Gong points. And the top of your head is a Lao Gong point. The reason I reference these when it comes to energetics is because that's the biggest neural network within your body, and you can feel the most amount of energy, right? So it's kind of like, okay, if you want to start feeling more, you put your attention to it. But in essence, for that gamma frequency, the reason I reference that is because when you replicate and that feeling that you have, and this is where people dismiss the simplicity of it, when you get a feeling in a song that makes you feel good, you're in that frequency that will basically give you whatever you want from the universe. That's the power of your manifestation, like right there.
It's so crazy, San. My energy comes from motivational stuff. I don't even hardly listen to music. I mean, I'll put music on with my wife when we're in the car and stuff like that. But for the most part, if I really want to get motivated and if I really want to get that laser focus, I listen to motivational stuff like Tony Robbins. I'll listen to Ed Milet. I'll listen to, all these people that I know that's going to bring me to that frequency of what you're talking about.
And
That
that's the
works
beautiful.
for me. Again, you have to find what works for you, right?
And that, I mean, and it's exactly the same as what I was talking about. That just happens to be the thing that makes you feel good. Because when they hit the peak, the masterful sentence or the statement or the comment that psychs you up and goes, bam, oh man, that's powerful. That's it. That's all it takes. And
Yeah,
people
it's crazy. Yeah, even like when I used to bodybuild and I was trying to get my pro card and doing all this and that. I would sit there and watch the Mr. Olympia, or it used to be called the Battle for the Mr. Olympia, and I would sit
yeah,
there and
yeah.
watch Ronnie Coleman train. I would watch Jay Cutler. I would watch Chris Cormier. I would watch Sean Ray. I would watch these guys on 30 minutes before I hit the gym. And that bring my frequency up so high that when I get into that gym, man, I'm ready to rock. You know?
Yeah. I mean, Dorian Yates, same thing.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
it just gets you all fired up, and that's the excitement. That's all it takes. And the amount of times that I've had people go, I watched that video and I just manifested $2,500 overnight. Good for you. How
Yeah.
about you have a higher aspiration and go, I want a house, I want a Lamborghini, and instead of turning it into a want, have it a knowing, and that will materialize, because everything's frequency. I mean, what people tend to the misconception is the universe doesn't have a moral compass, so you're limited by your perception of your reality.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
so that perception, when they talk about like the epigenetic model of understanding that on a deeper level, your environment controls your gene expression. You have little what they call self receptors within the skin, the dermal layer. And so when that transmission of information comes in from your external environment, it affects you on an internal level, affecting the blood, which is basically the culture medium that transmits the information, the energy, the frequency, and that's what affects the gene expression. So what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you are emoting transmutes into this reality. It happens that quickly.
Yeah,
And
your
that
environment. Your environment is everything.
absolutely. Yeah.
Uh,
And
if you're with someone who is eating fast food all the time, bringing junk food in the house, doing everything, and here you are overweight and trying to lose weight, that is going to affect your environment. Sooner or later, you're going to give in. But if you said, hey, babe, I don't want you to bring this in the house. If you're going to eat it away from me because I'm trying to lose weight and I need your support. And they did that and they support you and your environment and they're actually motivating you to get there, you're going to get there. But if not, you're not going to get where you need to get to. So your environment's everything.
1000%, another profound observation, because I mean, it really does come back to that. It's like a behavioral thing. You start to understand the the nature of a human being, the human condition, is wanting approval, understanding that approval. When you get that approval, you resonate higher. When you don't get that approval, you start dropping down to a lower frequency, which in turn you submit more to lower vibrational information, which would be an emotional content, because that creates that incoherence. You can just like click your fingers and you're right there in that state. And that's a mastery. And, people dream about getting there. And but I'm going to be really honest with the audience. You were born that way. This is not something that you didn't work hard for. You worked hard for, but you were in an environment that created that from when you were a young boy.
Oh yeah, I suffer. I mean, we came down as a refugee from Cambodia, and during that time it was called the Killing Field. And anybody who's
Oh
never
yeah, I
seen
remember that.
the Killing Field, go watch it. Or the new modern one that Angelina Jolie made. It's called First They Killed My Father. It's in Netflix. You can rent that. That little girl in First They Killed My Father is me, identical. I went through stuff as a little kid that most adult can't even fathom. I've seen little baby gets thrown on a tree because they came from an educated family. They try to kill all the way down to the roots, so they don't ever come up and raise out in power. Okay. And I've crossed swamp where there's a ton of dead bodies. I've seen head get cut off. I've seen head get blown away. And I was only 4 or 5 years old when I'm seeing all this thing. Crossing the swamp, and I have marks of leech bites that's still on me, that's scarred up since I was a little kid. And so we went to a refugee camp in Thailand, and from there, my uncle sponsors had brought us to the United States, and I was about 6, 7 years old. And you don't forget those things. And we came down, and my mom, and we got one toy a year, and we went to Salvation Army and got one toy, and there was like 12 of us in a 2-3 bedroom apartment, and we made it work. And so I used to see how hard my mom used to work, and she would work as a hairstylist and then get home, and they would bring a load of clothes, and she would sew clothes all night. And I said, Mom, I'm going to take care of you when I get older. And that always stuck in my head, knowing how hard I had to work. No matter what situation I'm in, I know there's always opportunity. And that's why I do a lot of online coaching right now. And I coach a lot of my guys online, and they love it because they got their schedule. They can work out whenever they want. But if they don't check off their workouts, they don't take pictures every single week, I'm going to know that they're not doing what they should be doing. But there's always a ways if you're committed. If you can always keep that in your head, there's always a way if you're committed, you will get what you want in life.
That's beautiful. You mentioned you had a wellness clinic or something like that. Was that something you were doing?
It's a health and a wellness. It's weight loss, has to do with like people going in there, and what it does, it freezes your fat. It's called cryoskin. It freezes your fat, and it goes to your lymphatic system when you're working out or eating right or drinking plenty of water, and then you pee and poop it out. It's aesthetic, so it's actually permanent, but it takes, for a lot of people, 5, 10, 15, 20 treatment until, depending on how much body fat they have on them. But we tell them from the beginning, like, look, you can go and get liposuction done. You can go and have a gastric bypass. And if you don't eat right, that fat is gonna come right back to you, and you're gonna gain that weight right back. Just like people who get gastric bypass, they're thinking, oh, if I get gastric bypass, I'm gonna lose all this weight. No, it just shrink your stomach. But if you train your stomach long enough, it will expand again. So people, I always tell them, this is a lifestyle. If you're going to come in and get that done, yes, you will drop fat way faster than you were doing it on your own. But at the same time, it's aesthetic, it's permanent, but it's going to come back in other areas.
So do you like the results that it gives people?
Oh, it's amazing. We have tons of before and after picture of people seeing results. My wife takes care of that, but we come together and put our head when it comes to like making decision what we should do next or what advertisement should we do, and where we should put our money at and so forth, because we have two locations. And then I take care of all the coaching when it comes to people losing weight or bodybuilders and people who just want to change their physique.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is. It's really it's so amazing, the transformation, and all again always comes back to that mindset. I always let people know that you can transform immediately. Like I could take someone who's got PTSD they've had for 30 years and literally give them a healing once, and it's gone. And that replication of that experience is instantaneous because it's a frequency change.
Yeah.
Changes instantly.
100%.
Frequency is different. 100. Well, I don't know. Are you okay for time, or you're pretty close?
Yeah, I got a few minutes. I just texted him, told him that I'm be a little late. So
yeah. This has been incredible. Just your sharing and being able to talk to you and what you've done to inspire people throughout your career, and especially now as you are a motivator. I'm not sure whether you do that or have ever been asked to do that, but there will come a time in the future. I'm putting together a consciousness, like sort of like expo here in Las Vegas. So that will come about, that I'll definitely call on you, my new best friend, and we'll have to have you out there, because it really is. It's a part of motivational stuff. And like you say, I mean, you look to Tony Robbins, Tony Robbins is an interesting character. How do you perceive him? Like, is it just what he says that's motivational, or are you familiar with his background and how he got to where he got to?
Oh yeah, I know all the way from the beginning of Tony Robbins' background and everything. But what I get is it's kind of like, people that go to church. Like if you go to church and you focus on like the people and you focus on everything else, you're never going to get what you want. What you want to do is you want to focus on the words, of what you want, what you're looking for. And when I listen to his motivator, I'm looking for the words that is going to trigger my brain, that's going to get me fired up and motivated, that's going to take me where I need to get to. So what I'm listening to is I'm listening to the words that I'm looking for to hear me, to pump me up, to motivate me, and to get me going.
It's so interesting. When you say that, is that just an intuitive thing, or are you specifically looking for the mechanism?
I'm looking. I mean, it's automatic for me, but I also I'm always listening to what it is that is gonna, what I'm looking for in that moment, in that time, that is gonna get me where I need to get to in my head, and my something that's going to basically set that energy off.
Well, yeah, I mean, you say that just intuitively, because I always I teach people a lot about understanding the inner workings of your DNA, and that you're intuitively working on 20, 30 generations before you of information that's laid out in your DNA strand that comes from words, numbers, symbols, letters. This is all integrated into your DNA. That's why people gravitate to a certain scripture. They gravitate to a certain word. They gravitate to a certain sort of like speech. And so that could transmute into the form of a faith, a religion, a motivational speaker. So it's really interesting when you say that, because, I mean, Tony Robbins is sort of like the godfather of what they've coined back in the 70s is what we call NLP.
Yeah, I like Jim Rome's. I still like Jim Rome's stuff, even though he passed away. I mean, Jim Rome is somebody that I just like listening to, just because I can relate to him. But I get more words a lot of time off of Jim Rome than I do with Tony Robbins. But it's just a moment in how I feel and what I'm looking for at that moment to trigger what I'm looking for.
And that just encapsulates everything we talk about. Thoughts, feelings, and emotions, boom. And then you get the Kris Dim pinnacle moment that makes you feel good. I mean, this is the essence of everything, right? It's like understanding that word. And there's a supercharge to those words. Just as you're like, I don't really listen to music. Those words are highly charged, whatever it is. And when that synchronizes into your your physical body, you get that electric charge. That feeling is like, man, that makes me feel focused. That makes me feel good. And this is right, comes back to the same model of everything's energy, frequency, vibration. And that's why it's so powerful. And it's sort of like indigenous practices, like, Taoist practices that are thousands, tens of thousands of years old. This all comes back to words. People talk about it. We call them incantations, prayer, just a mindset. Once again, back to the mindset. You can't get away from it. It's the epicenter of everybody. And when they understand that, that's when they capture this level of consciousness that's so popular right now. It's like,
oh yeah, I mean, the gentleman that I talked to earlier today, I always go back to, what is it that got you to where you're at right now, as far as gaining weight? What is it that happened to you as a kid that made you gain weight? What made you eat the way you eat? What stressed you out? Are you stress eating because of what you've done, what happened to you in the past? Let's go back to that child and let's go ahead and tell that kid, you are a new person today. You are not that person anymore. You need to tell, what would you tell that kid today, knowing what you know now, right? And right away he got it. He knew exactly what he did. He identified why he is gaining weight the way he is, what make him eat the way he eats, and he recognized it right away. So a lot of time with us is always goes back to what you're talking about, your subconscious mind, what you record as a kid that stays of recording as an adult. And what do you need to do to change it? It's not going back and say, okay, stop recording. Your body doesn't work like that. You got to keep playing that new recording for it to understand, oh, suddenly now this is your new identity, right, in your brain. That's going to take you to who you are, who you want to be, right?
Profound words, my friend. I love watching it because, I speak to a lot of people on this podcast, from, motivational speakers to entrepreneurs, famous celebrity athletes like yourself. And it's like, there's that ongoing theme, which is what you believe and your truth and your mindset and how you get there. It's shaped in all different ways and sizes. And people need to always remember how consciousness sort of works is, Chris is sitting at one end of the table, I'm sitting at the other end of the table, and we're looking at the same object, whether it's an orange, only it's a different perception. It's still consciousness. That's what consciousness is. And we all come to that same, we're all connected to that same level. So from a quantum model, we're interconnected. And so that's where we create the rapport. And that becomes instantaneous. So it's like a synchronizing effect that we can supercharge back and forth. And that comes from an acceptance. And what I talk about with human beings, they're always looking for approval. When you start to accept each other, which is a form of approval, then you drop down one layer of resistance and you start to what we call comply with the other person's desire to communicate with you. And then what happens is you start separating and dissolving the layers that between the two of you in your mind, and you become one with each other. Does this make sense?
Yeah, your animal instinct is always going to try to protect yourself, no matter what. And so when you see new people, you are going to protect yourself back because of your past. If you're a lady who's been cheated on left and right after every guy, your trust instinct is going to be so high, you're not going to trust the next guy. But until you break those layers down is when you're going to have a better relationship, because you have to give that next person a chance, because you're torturing them based on your past. So therefore your resistance is super, super high, because you don't want to break it. And so your instinct right away is, your animal instinct is to protect yourself. What are you going to do to protect yourself? But in life, if you don't ever let go of that layer and just push through and give yourself that positive thinking and not that negative results of thinking, then that's the only way you're going to be able to be successful, no matter what you're trying to do, whether it be a relationship, whether it be a new job, a new career, or bodybuilding. It doesn't matter. Athletes, it's all the same thing. You got to be able to break that barrier and say, I'm going to go all in. And if not, things never work out, right?
That's beautiful. I mean, again, because you're able to examine that from your personal experience, it's become so powerful, and people create a rapport with you because you show evidence of that. As human beings, we look for confirmation, right? We need to find that validation that the experience we're having is real. That's why I always go back to that feeling, the feeling component. When you have a visual audible experience, that feeling is the validation that it is true to you. It doesn't matter what I say. I could say, hey, Kris, if you go and do one of my meditations or experiences, this is going to happen. You'll be like, unless you experience it, you go and hit play and you come back and go, hey, Sam, that's, I feel amazing after doing that. But that has to be validated by you, or you can come back and go.
You got to be all in. You got to accept it. If you don't put both feet in, you're not going to learn it.
Profound words, my friend. And it really does. Again, a validation, how important this is, what you are. And, people always say this, being that they believe it's trapped within their mind, when really it's coming from your heart.
Oh, yeah.
Your heart. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Magnetically or physiologically, from a metaphysical level, all your commands are being given to you by your heart, not your brain. Your brain is more like a projector. You believe it from your physiology, from what you can perceive as flesh and blood, that information is coming from here. It's really coming from your heart. And so from an electromagnetic level, you have this electromagnetic field that comes from your heart that is 5,000 times more powerful than from your brain. Your brain puts out a very low electric magnetic field that is not even parallel. It's like 1/1,000,000th the degree of magnetism, electromagnetic pulsations from your heart, and that's where the information comes from. That's why when I talk about the neural network, the sensory neurites that are in your heart, which is equivalent to having a brain in your heart, that's why most people, when they talk about trauma, and this is where I can give people instant healings when it comes to mental emotional stuff, because they store it inside. They think it's in here. So there's a neural network there, and yes, you can go to a therapist or a psychiatrist or whatever, sit on the couch, talk to them for hours, have them repeat your stuff over and over again, and then you work it out and go, yeah, I got it. I feel better. And then all of a sudden it comes rushing back because it's all stored in here. And unless you clear this energy center, you're always going to be traumatized and bound by the limitations of that, because everything is a thought, feeling, and emotion that is stored energetically in here. When you release this and you heal from this and you open this up, you're unstoppable. So the parallels of that electromagnetic field, the reason that it's so powerful is because that energy is coming out from here and it's enveloping your whole body. That's exactly a replica. We are a miniature replica of the Earth. The Earth has a magnetic field that comes from the core of the Earth, and that's what creates what we call the blue sky outside. So when the sun shoots down its rays on the Earth, it hits the magnetic field and you create that spectrum of light, which is called the rainbow. And the center of that is the blue light. That's why we have blue light. If we didn't have an electromagnetic field from the Earth, we'd be a scorched bunch of dust that would be we wouldn't be realized as human beings, because the sun's rays would burn us to a pulp. So that magnetic field is the same replicated magnetic field that you have in your heart, and so you transmit that. Like for me, when I read someone's aura, and people are like, that sounds kind of like a little hokey, mystical stuff. Well, it's a training that we do as Taoists, and you sort of go and you look at the organs of the body, and then you're able to take the virtue over emotion, or what is excess or deficient, and then you give someone a mental emotional summation of their state that they're in, and then we go to balance out those energies. Now, I do that from a training that's been done, that I've worked with for 30 years, but there's also the Heart Math Institute, and they measure this packet of information that comes from your heart, and you can actually measure someone's mental emotional state now, today, with the technology of what they're feeling through this packet of information that comes out through the magnetic field in your body.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of like you don't realize it's all sort of like it's coming full circle. I like using this stuff as like, well, this is peer-reviewed science, because some people will, that's the first layer of creating rapport with someone, when you can give them information that is validated in what they conceive a language that they understand, which is science, physics, stuff of that nature. When science and physics has only been around 300 or 400 years, whereas Taoism's been around 10,000 years. You know, it's like Hinduism, the same. You know, Christianity, the same. Or, you know, Buddhism, the same. And so as indigenous practices that we're familiar with, that are thousands of years old, that we intuitively have known our connection with the universe or God per se, whatever you believe in, has been intuitively understood for thousands of years. But now we have this whole, well, we've got a language, we've got binary code, zeros and ones that would validate what you're saying. And I get all sort of like, well, I know that. Thank you for telling me that, but I already knew that. Anyone who has a faith knows that there's something that's more powerful than just the sum of their physical body, that tells them there's a bigger picture that's created what is here, which is something profound. And so, you know, that magnetic pull is the way that you read information. So that I guess that was something it sounded like you were interested in there for a minute.
Yeah, I'm always going to be, I just believe that in life, there's always a half, like you're saying, a half empty, half full. So if you always look at things full, then you'll never learn anything else. And so if your cup is half empty, half full, you can always take in more information no matter what. And so I think a lot of time with people, they close everything up, so therefore nothing ever gets learned any more than what they know. I mean, you know, we look at some people in life, like, you know, my wife's mom, she's never had anything but what I call white people food. So she's never had, you know, Chinese, she's never had, you know, Thailand, she's never had all these other food. All she's ate is white people food. And to me, it's like, man, you're going to die like that, where you're never going to experience any other food. And then my wife, she was the same way until she met me. And now she's, you know, she's gone to my house, and my mom always cooks, and now she loves it. She's more Asian than I am, you know, but it's just in life, it's really weird. You know, it's like, there's so much to learn if you're still on this earth. And I think if you're still on this earth, you still need to keep absorbing things that's going to make a difference in your life.
Well, yeah, I mean, amen to that, my brother. Amen. I mean, on a quick note of that whole neurological pathway stuff, have you ever used the expression, I got a gut feeling?
Yeah. We all do. We all have gut feelings and instinct. And like you're saying, talking about the heart, it's like, if you feel it in your heart and you use your intuition, 9 out of 10 times, you're already right. And you don't go with it, and you realize later on, you're like, damn it, I should have just went with my intuition. I should have went with my heart, because that is very true.
Well, no, it's beyond true. You've adopted it organically and understood it, and instinctually you're connecting with that. But what happens is that information comes into the heart. The heart then transmits it up the parasympathetic nervous system into the brain. The brain uses the mirror neurons that replicates that message. It goes down into the gut, and that's where you get the gut feeling. And so all of a sudden, it's like, hang on a second. Are you telling me that's real? Yes. I'm not just telling you. I can show you on an energetic level, but I can also tell you on a neurological level and a scientific level that that's actually valid to be true as a real thing. It's not just an expression that people use because they kind of feel it. Because a lot of people talk in energy, and I've had intensive conversations with people that are, like, you know, serious, devoted Christians that don't believe in energy, and they believe that, you know, you can't do that. And I'm like, okay, but in the last 5 minutes, you've had a conversation with me, and you've like, this person has good energy, this person has bad energy. I don't like the energy of that. Yet you don't believe in energy, but you used it in your dialogue. And they're like, oh, you're right. And that's like, hang on a second. I actually do that, because you're working on past generations. And that's another validation, and something that you sort of grasp your mind with. And I go through people with that. I'll take them through past. Do you believe in reincarnation at all?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I believe it to extent, just because of Buddhism, So it's Buddhism, and they believe in reincarnation. They believe that if you're a good person, you come back in your next life, and you're gonna have things that are gonna be successful, or whatever it is. And then if you're a bad person, you're gonna come back in a bad life, and you come in as an ant or whatever. So I mean, I've learned that just because of my parents. Do I believe in reincarnation? Yes. Do I believe what they turn into? I have no idea. I don't think
Right.
any of us do.
Yeah, until you experience it, you can't validate it, right?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
and I mean, for me, I like to do that. For most people, I'll do like past, present, and future life readings, and then they put in perspective information. And normally, I'll do like 9 lives leading up to this one, and people are like, "Oh, that sounds kind of a little." Well, what happens is when I put them in that state of consciousness, they drop in, and you put them into a state that all of a sudden they're close their eyes and they're getting images in their third eye from the stories that I tell them, from the information I'm receiving from their field and their past life readings. And then all of a sudden they put them all together and they go, holy moly, that makes absolute sense why I'm here. And that's when it becomes real to them. It's like, hang on, I'm getting this story, I'm getting all these feelings. But when I actually put these pieces together and they're making sense as to why I'm here right now in this lifetime, then they go, mind blown.
Well, there's a saying that millionaire doesn't look at the Chinese zodiac. Billionaire does, because they say it's real. I mean, if it's your year and the year of the ox or whatever it is, that year you want to give everything, and you're going to push to do anything you want to do, because that's a year you're going to be successful at. So the Chinese zodiac, I mean, everyone that I've ever talked to who actually believe in it, that actually, you know look at the years and look at the date and look at when they're good years, they're bad years, and everything else, and obviously it's true. My mom reads that stuff all the time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have people get me to go in and help them design their house so the feng shui, the flow of the energy is optimal. So, and only once or twice in 30 years I've had someone bulldoze their house because the door was in the wrong direction. You always want to face the door towards the south, which is the Tao's light. God's light is coming into your front door. That means you're always going to be, what's the word, blessed with this energy and frequency.
Is that in the morning normally when you get up?
Um, well, just having it all day. Because what happens is if you structure it and your door is always open to the south, that light is always present. And so, you can have things to obstruct that. But again, when you get past that duality perspective, all bets are off, because then all of a sudden the 12 zodiacs turn into all zodiacs. That means that every year is a good year for you. But that state of consciousness comes from dissolving of the yin and yang. And so that's in lots of cases that I've perceived, it's a very big step for someone to take. But for me to go in, if I immerse, so for example, like just recently, my wife had, she was doing a curling hair iron with her hair, and she curled her hair, and then she slipped and she dropped the curling iron, and it's like a $300 iron. She's like, and she grabbed it with her hand, like open hand, right? And went, oh no, this is bad. Now she let go, she's screaming. And for me to dip into a fifth dimensional reality, and you watch the DNA dissolve and alter within your eyes. Now, this is the hard part where you're like, when you do that, and I've been doing this for 30 years, I've watched some crazy stuff. That's why when you give me your story, I know intuitively in my heart that will be real. That will be realized, and your state of consciousness and your walking on this earth again in a physical form will be realized, because I've seen it. I've seen crazy stuff. But something like this, like, reversing like a burning heat, because I do this within a lot of my practices with hot and cold exposure, yin and yang exposure. I'll go into like, 36 degree, cold tub for 45 minutes to an hour. And people are like, you're out of your mind. I can't even do it for 60 seconds. It's easy. I could sit in a sauna for 240 degree sauna for 40 minutes. And people are like, There's no way. You're insane. Well, come with me. Come into my little temple of temperature alteration, and I'll show you that you can transmute the energy and move it through your physical body however you choose to. And so when she burnt her hand, that the reversal of that damage was about 30 seconds and was gone. And you watch it within her physical body. And I will speak on it now. And whenever, at some point, whenever we do meet, I'll show you that. But I don't even need to meet you. I can see you over here, and we could transfer miracles to each other. Your mindset, a few tweakings to some of the techniques that I have, and you could create miracles beyond your wildest imagination. It all has to do with the system. The thing is, I'm using systems that are thousands of years old. I don't claim to have created them. I've just been trained in them. So once you understand that, Bruce Lee wasn't like, a fantasy Hollywood wannabe. He focused and found his Taoist teacher, because we're really good at connecting energy. And he was able to train in these things. 1-inch punches, like everyone goes, wow, that's so amazing. No, it's not really. When you understand how energy works, I could teach a 50-pound woman to punch a 300-pound guy and push him 10 feet back in the room. It's all how you transfer it. Just right down to iron fist training, iron palm training, just basic Nigong, moving energy with your mind, Qigong, moving energy with your breath. These are all systems that were created thousands of years ago. It's like people kind of like want to reinvent the wheel. Like, hang on a second, I'm going to come up with something that's going to be different. No, it's already been done. As you know, within Buddhism, I mean, when you get high ascension consciousness within a Buddhist practice, they're doing crazy things. Like, one of the things is for a Buddhist monk is to go out into the snow, dig a cave and sit in there and keep their temperature at a certain degree using chi, moving that chi through their body so that they don't freeze to death.
You ever see that picture of a guy, a Buddhism guy, walking up the mountain, and the other guy had to use ropes to get up there? He's just walking up the mountain like no big deal, and the other guy's using a rope to get up the hill.
Because that's a consciousness, right? And you want to know what's replicating of that is when you say just do it, because you're not thinking. And so you hit that frequency level, that 5D, and you've taken it. I'm not going to say, because you always talk about gratitude, and I believe you're grateful, but you don't understand the sort of levels of consciousness that you really get to, that you do naturally, that people are like, I will train for years to attempt to access that, because it's something that you've accepted into your very essence. So when you do it, you're like, just do it. And that's something
is belief. I think a lot of people don't believe. So when they don't believe, that's the beginning of anything. It's never going to happen. So they have to believe that they can actually do it first. And once they can believe it, then everything else, you can train them to do, right? So they have to accept that, right?
And that's the old 4-minute mile, right? Have you ever heard of that 4-minute mile?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, he did it, and then 1,500 people did it the following year,
And it hadn't been done before. And so that, how that works. It works back on the whole model of understanding the mirror neurons. So when I talk about the mirror neurons, why are they so important is because once you're exposed to something, that's why it's so powerful. Anything that's a visual, audible experience, once you're exposed to it, you now have the ability to access that frequency.
If they can do it, you can do it. I mean, I was the first Asian to get on the Mr. Olympia stage. Right after that, there's tons of Asians that are getting on. The second guy that got on the Mr. Olympia stage, my good friend Hide. Hide got on the Mr. Olympia stage
He's out in Vegas now, isn't he? He's got a gym in Vegas, right?
Yeah. He's got the powerhouse out there with Iris.
Yeah.
And so after me, Hide was the next person, because he says, if Kris can do it, I can do it. And he believed that he can get on the Mr. Olympia stage, and he did. And so then it went on to more Asians. Now there's tons of Asians all over the world that believe that they could be, on the Mr. Olympia stage. So I kind of set the platform for them. the pedestal that it could be done, because before me, there's never been an Asian that got on Mr. Olympia stage. They feel like they weren't big enough. They feel like they didn't have what it takes. They feel like you can't compete with the Americans and everything else. And I just didn't care. That was the naysayer to me. And I just believed what I believed. And like I said, the best perception was that cat looking himself, seeing himself as a lion. And that was me. Every time I looked in the mirror, that's what I saw. I didn't see the skinny little Chris that you can count bones on. And it just happened for everybody else.
Well, for the audience, I want them to hear that really carefully and let that echo in their mind. And then take a moment, if you don't know who Chris is, go and look him up on the internet and take a look at some of those photos, because you clearly in your mind said, I'm going to acquire the He-Man physique, and he created the He-Man physique. So I couldn't care less what you could say your genetic pool was beforehand, but any person that walks after you from your lineage is going to have that incredible DNA, because it's a flex. What happens is you've now created a rippling effect. Your children, did you say you have a son?
We have 4 boys together. I have 2 and my wife has 2, so 4 boys together.
Well, you have 2 that were from your directly from your DNA strand, but the other 2 are also environmentally around you. So that is also replicated with it, because you can alter someone's DNA from your environment. That gets
It's
back
funny.
to
We got 2 that's like me, as far as an athlete, because one of them does Muay Thai and he just won his last fight with a TKO this last week. And then my other son, he does MMA fighting, and he trains with Team Alpha Male, Uriah Favorite. And his last meet, he just did a flying armbar and put the guy in a flying armbar in 90 seconds. So you're gonna get some that have that same energy and have feeling as you, and then other they don't, and the other 2, they can care less about weight training.
They're around it, though. They're around it. If they get exposed to it at all, their physique will replicate what it's already exposed to. That's the whole neurological network, and understanding that, because it's a rippling effect within the energetics, because you're interconnected. It happens like that. It's so powerful. But it's like understanding those type of simple things. I mean, I very rarely train people in kill points, because unless I am fully committed to understanding that you have a mastery of your emotions, it's sort of like it's like handing a young child, a pair of scissors. It's not really a cool thing. You need to be 100% like, I got my emotions down, and then I'll be more than happy to teach you all the kill points. Run a fingernail over someone, and they're going to drop like a bag of doo-doo very quickly. And it only takes a brief second. And we're talking little to no pressure on the dermal layer. It's understanding where all that neurology is within the physical body, and then putting pressure on the energetic pathways also. And once you understand that, you have a mastery. People do it. They do it within martial arts. And that's why people are obsessed with the martial form, especially internal martial arts, like a bagua. Bagua is like, are you familiar with bagua?
No.
So bagua is like a spinning and turning sort of like form, where Tai Chi is very elegant. Bagua is like you move around your opponent like a tornado, and you just take off body parts, and that's not very forgiving. So if you're in a combated sort of situation where you've manifested that, because I teach people to manifest their reality. So if you're manifesting a confrontation, then you're going to be put in a situation where you do silly things because you're letting your emotions control you. So your emotions are now controlling you, and you're doing silly things. And then on top of that, because you're doing silly things and you have the skill set to do silly things that are permanent or fatal, then we have layer upon layer upon layer. So there's kind of like I sort of reserve certain techniques to certain personalities, or I understand they're going to be committed to a high level of consciousness that then is never implemented as something that ends up badly for themselves. because
Well,
that's
it's that saying what you think about, you bring about.
yes,
And that's so true. A lot of people don't understand that. You know, they'll say like, why does these bad things always happen to me? Why does this do it? Why did that do it? And guess what? You keep getting the same crap over and over and over again because, or some people that get in a fight all the time, they always find fight in the bar every single time because they bring it upon themselves how they think and the energy that they produce.
and they bring it out exactly right back to the profound words of Chris, which is mindset is everything, and just do it. I mean, the simplicity and power of those few words, my friend, goes beyond any sort of book read stuff or even logic or understanding, because when you apply it and you show people, which is what you do, people will listen. It's about application. They follow you because you are a doer and you apply it, and your career, your life is evident of that. That's that confirmation aspect that people are looking for.
All our life is like that. You know, you look at how people live sometime, and you have some people that, you know, even like teenager now, they're multimillionaires, and you look at people that are struggling every single day. And then when the people that are struggling, they don't want to take the next step to do better with themselves. And that starts with taking care of their physique, start to take care of their mind, start taking care of their body, start eating right so they feel better, they look better, they have more energy. They don't want to do any of those things, and then they wonder why they're in the same situation all the time. You know, and it's like you can change that. You can change it if you want to, but the problem is you're procrastinating on everything every single time. That anything you do, you procrastinate in life, and you never take the action that you need to get yourself in a better situation. So therefore, you put yourself there.
Right. I mean, it is brilliant. I would say one more reference to a fractional pattern, which, and you know, are you familiar with fractal patterns?
A little bit, yeah. I
So,
mean,
so in relation to a quantum model, what that means is the universe is dynamic. So in quantum physics, that means that everything is interconnected. The previous model of physics or understanding of the universe was a Newtonian model, which is a cause and effect. That means that everything is operating separately. So, you know, my head is my head. It's not my head that's attached to my body that's one. No, my head is operating separately to my body, which was a fallacy in of itself, but it took a period of time for us to get a greater understanding. Now, from indigenous practices like Buddhism, Taoism, we've already known that we're at one with the universe. The universe is inside us. The universe, we are the universe. The universe is inside us. The universe is outside of us. We are one with all. But that physics sort of like mentality was, I need confirmation. And so validation through quantum physics is understanding that we are all one. We're not separated. Does that make sense?
yep, I
Yeah.
understand. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just kind of like, you know, people believe in God. They said that you are God. So in other words, you are uh, the disciple of God. So you do things that you can actually do as far as you know, the miracle that can happen could happen if you believe in what it is, right?
Yes. Yes. And so when we look at the fractal pattern, if you look at the top of someone's head, you have a hair pattern. If you look at a young child, it's sort of like a swirl, right? That is what we call a fractal pattern. You can find that swirl in a head of broccoli. You can find that swirl in a flower. These are all sacred geometry that is integrated into everything. And this is basically a replication of the universe, and that goes back to what we call the hologram model of understanding, where everything, if you take something that's this big or something the size of America, it's all the same. You're able to see it as a whole, whether it's at a cellular level, subatomic level, or something as large as yourself in flesh and blood. It all remains whole in of itself. So when we use the fractal pattern, you have events and traumas or events in your life that have a thought, feeling, and emotion that encapsulated, and they're infused into that event. Now, you can literally time the last major trauma that you had to the next one that you're going to have within a certain time frame, because you've already imprinted that into your reality. So how do you break these fractal patterns so that you're not creating another trauma, another event that has a thought, feeling, and emotion that was so dramatic? How do you change that? Just the way Chris has just spoken on it, the audience, ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen and ladies listening to us right now, as Kris has said, to change a fractal pattern is quite simple. You think positive, positive things happen. You think negative, negative things happen. This is the simplicity of changing that fractal pattern. But I can tell you, you can literally work out the exact time the last one happened, and it will repeat itself again unless you don't change your behavior. It will continue to repeat itself, and it will be replicated in something what we like to call a Groundhog Day. It goes over and over again. So the more you invest in that energy, it ripples out into the effects of the universe, replicating back what you put out. Does that make sense?
Yep. It's energy that you put out is what you're going to attract in the type of people, the type of place, the type of things that's going to come back into your life.
100%. And that's where, you say, glass half full, glass half empty. That's exactly the basic understanding of reality is if you look at life half full, it will continually repeat itself and bring that into your life. Within these fractal patterns, right down to the hair pattern on someone's head, as opposed to a piece of broccoli, or you could go out into nature and you will find it everywhere, in the trees, in the environment, in the landscape. It's all right in front of you, and it happens everywhere. So understanding that the universe is dynamic, this is evident in everything that we do.
You can cut a tree. If you cut a tree down, you'll see the squirrel mark right in the middle of the tree. That's probably
100
to an analogy of.
And how did Taoists know this? How did Buddhists and Taoists know this for thousands of years? You will see the symbol of Taoism is the swirl. That's like a transformation to what you see now as a yin and yang symbol that people are very familiar with. But going back thousands of years, it was a swirl because they were transmitted the information from the universe at a high consciousness level, because all thoughts of your mind are not yours. People think they are, but you're getting a great idea. You think, oh, I got this great idea. It came in from somewhere, but it wasn't yours. But hey, look, you can put it on a tag and put your name on it and make yourself feel good. But it's information coming to you.
And that idea, thousands of people all have it. The only difference is which one took actions to make it a reality, right?
Yes. And so that's where you'll see that swirl and you'll be like, oh, that's what Sam was talking about. Now I got it. I see it in the wood. I see it in there. It's everywhere. And that's it. And right back to what Kris said, I want the audience to hear this very clearly, because his message has been clear through this whole podcast, is your mindset is the only thing. And for you to change your mindset is to act on it. So it's nothing more than a thought. For it to be turned into an action, you must also have a feeling and an emotion, because they're the two other ingredients. So a thought can be a thought, but when you have an emotion and a feeling to it, it evokes an action. Does that make sense?
You have a hard time getting that mind muscle connection and focus on things that you should be focusing on. Just find somebody who's already done it, like yourself, okay? Or if you want to get in shape, find someone who's already done it. If you want to go and learn real estate, don't try to figure it out yourself. Someone's already done it. Go find a millionaire that's already done it and have them mentor you. No matter what it is you want in life, it's already been done. Just go find someone who's already did it and shortcut the shortcut to get where you need to get to. But most of us try to figure shit ourselves, and next thing you know, take you 3-4 times as long. Why are you doing that way? You can find someone and just have them mentor you. And, like anything else, knowledge, you got to go out there and you have to pay for it. Now, you don't have to. There's internet, there's YouTube, there's everything that you can go and learn from. But if you don't want to, just shortcut the shortcut and find someone in your field and go out there and make it happen. Else another 10 years is going to pass up. You're still saying the same stuff. I wish I went ahead and did it.
And that's a beautiful, and you see that is, what that's an example of the fractal pattern that I talk about. So it's a repetitive behavior. And so you're able to break that pattern. Most people will sit in it because it's familiar. Human beings do not like feeling uncomfortable. When they feel uncomfortable, that adversity, all the stuff that you have lived your life through and you've risen above it, that incredible frequency, most people, the second there's some adversity, they stop and they retreat, they turn back in the other direction, and they go back into their safe, what they consider their safe
Yeah,
place,
it's too
or
hard.
their comfortable zone.
It's too
Right?
hard for them. That's what it is.
Well, that's a perception, right?
It's if it doesn't challenge you, it will not change you no matter what you do in life. So just remember that every single time. And that's what I tell my guys every time when I train them and I push them hard. I say, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. No challenge, no change. Every single time. And I put that into their head, because anything that's worthwhile is going to be a challenge. And it doesn't matter what it is. I have a coach, and shoot, I don't mind even telling you guys. 12 weeks, I pay him nine grand. Why? Because he knows more online coaching when it comes to more than I do. Do I know more about life coaching and as far as training thousands of people? Do I have more experience than him? Absolutely. But is he more experienced than I am when it comes to success in making money on online coaching? Absolutely. Why? He's already done 8-figure on his own. So why wouldn't I pay someone like that, get the knowledge, and learn how to do it faster myself? And that's what a lot of people don't want to do. They don't want to go pay someone like yourself. They don't want to go pay for anything, and they're greedy. They don't want to learn anything, but they don't realize all that's doing is slowing them down even more.
That's profound worlds, my friend. And that really is the truth. It's like what happens is what you and I as a collective today have put together so much incredible information for the audience to take away from this incredible, amazing conversation about things that are all related to consciousness from all different types of angles, from your perception as a professional athlete and as a professional coach, and all the things that you put into the health and fitness industry. And, myself from a spiritual aspect, a metaphysical aspect, we're coming together with this general consensus and understanding that the really most powerful seed of all reality is your mindset. It doesn't get any easier than that. And if people listen to what we're saying today, they're going to have profound changes in their life.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you look at your life, okay, everything is all about learning from the past and moving on to the future. Everything is all about, there's no such thing as failure. You either learn from it or you grow from it to be successful. And there's one or the other. You either learn from it or you grow from it. And so my thing is that as long as you're growing from it, from whatever you're doing in life to get better, and as long as you recognize your past, what you can do to better your future, you're going to lead on the right direction. But you have to learn from your past so you can do better in your future every single time. Don't keep the definition of insanity, and that's doing the same thing and expecting different results, because it will never get better.
And that goes back to the fractal pattern understanding. So the fractal pattern is you're doing the same thing. You just validated what we were talking about, which is the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, looking for a different outcome, which is the repetition of this fractal pattern. And to change it is you have to affect change. What was that? That was a brilliant, motivational, a mind blower. Challenge comes change. What was it? The exact word.
If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you.
I love that. I might have to steal that from you, my friend. Because it really is true. It really is true, because that's how you shift your consciousness. But the difference is I was going to ask you this, your mindset, you've had to validate that. The reason that it works for you is understanding that you've experienced things and you realize when you invest more in the positive things and your actions of developing results, you get more results. And it's sort of like that's your validation, your confirmation that this is true. And this is what happens with people. People are like, oh, I tried your manifestation thing and it didn't happen. And I said,
how long did you try it for?
well, that's the other question. But also the question I would say to them is, you're a powerful manifestor already. And they're like, what are you talking about? Well, you're really depressed and disappointed. Did you know that takes you having a thought, feeling, and emotion? You've invested in that, and now that's your reality. You're depressed and disappointed. You created that environment. You've invested in it, and it's now your reality. And they're like, oh,
Well, yeah, you've
actually,
created
right.
your subconscious mind to be like that because that's the same recording that you've already been doing for the rest of your life, and you want change overnight. It doesn't happen like that.
Wow. Wow, my friend. This has been an incredible podcast today, I must say. I really appreciate you giving us all your time and attention and basically sharing with the audience decades of incredible achievements and insight into just just what the human body can do and what you can do as a human being, raising up above what you perceive as your reality in front of you, using your mindset to create something greater.
I
Do
just
you have
believe that we're on this earth for a reason, and that is we are all successful in our own way in our own head, and it's how you think, like you're saying, how you act, what you do on a regular base, what practice are you doing if you want to get better, whatever it is, you need to practice on it over and over again. And most people, they don't do it long enough. And if you can do it long enough and finish whatever task you start with, I promise you, you will be better in anything else that you do. Why? Because your brain is programmed to finish it because it won't let you give up, and that's where all of us need to get to.
that is profound. It's kind of like what we call a. Have you heard of a hetero action?
Yeah, yeah.
Right, right. So I mean, the hetero action is if you want to create compliance, the first thing you do with someone to get compliance to access their unconscious. Because let's just say you have someone who's resistant, right? The first thing they do is like, oh, I don't want to listen to you. And you're like, okay, you're in your mind, you've determined your power of your willpower, which really doesn't exist, but people believe it does. It's just how much you access your consciousness, right? For you, you do it as second nature. You're accessing 100% of your consciousness. But in actuality, your willpower is measured by that. But if you were just the average person that was working at 99%, 5% consciousness, your willpower will always lose. Oh, I tried the exercise. I tried this. I tried that. I just gave up donuts. I did whatever. But five days later, I'm eating donuts again because 5% is not going to overshadow the polarizing 95% that is operating unconsciously in your behavior.
What's the perception of what you tell yourself? It's a story you tell in your
Yeah.
head. And that's the problem is that, it's kind of like my wife for the first time she tried something. She doesn't want to try it because she's already having in her mind that this thing's bad, this thing's nasty. She doesn't want to try it. And it's forget it, right? You tell yourself, and then she tastes and she goes, oh my God, this is really good. So my thing is don't knock it before you try it, and don't tell a story before it's been done.
So profound because that just enters people's unconscious, creating a conscious awareness instantaneously. That simplicity, because it's just confirming the obvious to you and I. But for someone that's listening to this for the first time, it's an epiphany to realize that you can affect change in your life like that, just using that mindset.
Yeah. It's all the story you're telling yourself, and you either believe your story, whatever you say is the truth. Why? Because you said it. So
So, in closing, before we close up here, I want to ask you, what is your definition of consciousness, and what would you share with the audience as a foundational a nugget that you could hand to them from all your decades of experience?
well, consciousness is what you believe, and consciousness is the energy that you put out, that what you're going to get back. But my biggest thing, what I always tell people, like I just said earlier, it's has to do with you having an open mind from the beginning on anything that you want to do. If you have an open mind and you have the right energy and you have the right frequency and you believe it in your heart, you're going to get what you want. You always do, but you got to keep that there. And when the window gets really foggy, you got to go wipe it and clear your window again so you can see clearly on that what it is that you really, really want in life. And it's going to happen if you keep keeping that window clear enough and not let it get foggy. You will get there. Just keep your mind there. And a lot of people, you know, there's a saying that I always say, you wanna give somebody a dream, they'll hit it. You want to mess up their dream, give them another one and another one and another one and another one. Now they don't know what dream to shoot for.
Wow. Wow. I want to thank you, my friend. It's a really humbling, profound moment. I may seem like a little fanboy, but I appreciate all the things that you've achieved in your life and your career, and what you mean from a motivational speaker, and just an inspiration for any human being to realize that, you know, your first world problems, you need to wake up and realize that people are dealing with adversity throughout the world that are not concerned about their 5 likes on YouTube. And that when you come across people like Kris, who have achieved so many things from an athletic, professional aspect, all the way up to just showing the power of humanness and what your mind can do when you put your intention into it, and it ripples out into, it just affirms your inspiration, affirms all the things that I teach people in relation to mindset in of itself. Like attracts like. And I just want to thank you for sharing your time with us today and all your insight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was great. You know, we got to do this again. You know, obviously
Yeah,
it's supposed to be an hour, and then now it's up almost 2.5 hours. So
I
it's good
it was
stuff.
effortless.
Yeah, I mean, it's great, and you know, and people need to understand, like, you know what, like I said, their problem is their problem, and your problem is the biggest problem. But there's a guy who's got no shoes, and he wasn't appreciated until you met a guy who's got no feet, right? Someone else always has it worse than you do. So therefore, focus on things that you can basically control in your mind, in your life, and focus on more of that. And likes attract like. You're gonna keep focusing on that. You're gonna keep getting more of that. But you know, don't let the bad things go. I mean, the reason why I come from where I'm at is that I had a 10% chance to live. You know, when I had my aorta dissection, and they told my family that I wasn't going to wake up, and if I was going to wake up, I was going to wake up with brain damage and paralysis put together. I
Wow.
got up, walking to point A to point B. I was out of breath. Start picking up the 3-pound weights. Start getting on a treadmill. Start walking to running. And in 6 months, I went from 160 pound back to 220 pounds in 6 months. Why? Because I believed it. And now, after 4 surgery and being and having a spinal cord injury and being in a wheelchair, I realize in life I just let things flow. I don't let things get to me anymore. Whatever gets to me, it's really short and it's gone. And I just focus on, you know, being in a positive stage every single time in my life, no matter what's going through my life. I hit it, deal with it, move on. And then, just like I said, don't have a bad moment. Just allow yourself to do not have a bad moment, no matter what you're going through. Have that bad moment, but don't allow yourself to have bad days, because bad days is turn bad week, bad month, bad year. That's the last thing I want you guys to remember. Just know that, let it go, let it flow like water, like Bruce Lee says, and focus on your life to what you want to achieve.
That's just profound, my friend. I mean, it's almost rippling an echo of how I always teach people within Taoism. It's called Wu Wei, which is effortless action. That's what we talk about. Effortless effort, which is the flow. And so all these things are just profound, that we can meet together and have so many things that are in common in the way that we perceive our reality. And it translates into your reality and what you achieve in your life. It's just it's inspirational.
So, guys, I thank you, Sam. I thank you for having me on here. And yes, let's put something together, and I will be right there in Vegas next to you to push you through and get this message out, and whatever we need to do to help people get to the stage in their life where they should be. And when I say where they should be, is you got to believe where you need to be, and you're already there. You just have to get there. And let's do this again.
We're definitely going to do it again. Thank you again, Kris, for coming on. the podcast, and I'm just grateful to have found a new friend, and I look forward to building our friendship in the future. And that is going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to meet together and get this consciousness to a higher level on a platform that more of the world stage, more people can raise their frequency up and be aware of how powerful their mind is. So I want to thank you, Kris, for coming on the podcast. And I want to thank the audience for watching. And I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Quinn, signing off. And I'll see you on the next one, guys.
Bye.